Death is a second away. People die every 5 minutes from a fentanyl overdose in America. There's 200 a day. It's a plane crash every day that's happening, and we're not doing anything about it, right? And so that's why we're here. The old way is out. The game's changed, the drugs changed, intervention has changed, and treatment's got to change.
This episode of Die Sober discusses sensitive topics that may be triggering to some viewers. If you are experiencing an emergency and need help, please call 911 or contact the National Suicide Hotline at 988.
For non-emergency assistance, please use us as a resource. Visit us at thefirmaddictionconsulting.com, or for more information, call us 615-210-6703. My name is Darren Hobbs, 45, from Nashville, Tennessee, and my story to me really starts a couple of days after I got arrested in 2010. Laying in my bunk, I've got no hopes left. My life is over as I know it, and I'm sick to my stomach. I've got to get to a restroom. I'm sitting in the Metro County Jail. It's a huge gymnasium. I'm on a top bunk. I'm in the middle of the room, and the closest restroom is, 50, 100 feet away. And so as I'm getting closer to the restroom and closer to privacy, I know that I am about to get sick and throw up. In like this real sick lack of hopelessness, I thought it might be a win if I got to throw up in private. And I didn't make it that far. I ended up doubling over, and I get sick. I fall on the floor. It was like I'm watching it on closed circuit TV. I'm watching myself throw up in a river of water that's in a public jail restroom. God knows what's in it. But here's this guy who's had every opportunity to get sober, to get clean. And instead of taking advantage of it, he's lied. He's taken advantage of people that love him. He's double-crossed his friends. He's done the whole thing. Every opportunity he's had to get clean, he trashed it. And so watching this guy and knowing it was me, I just wanted to die. If there was a button on your leg you could push to say, man, now's the time. I can't take any more of this. That's it. I wanted to die. Instead of dying, what I got that turned out to be a gift, I started to unwrap, I think that day, the gift of desperation as I understand it. I began to understand that my only shot at life of any sort would be through recovery first. I had always tried to fit my wants and what I thought were my needs through this big I, and then drag recovery along. And what I started to realize that day was that recovery had to open the door for me to have any shot at life.
So when I asked you where your story started, you immediately went to your story to recovery. But do you have a story before that? What was your story before that?
I have memories of 5 and 6, probably closer to 6, where my family moves from Knoxville to Nashville, and I'm the new kid. And I can remember being terribly unnerved at being the new guy at a grade school. I remember grabbing onto my mom's leg, trying to fight to stay in the car and not go inside. And that's the first time I really, really remember what came to be a theme for me. And that was that in or around my mom or my dad, mostly my mom, I was safe. And maybe not so safe, but I wasn't exposed, and I wasn't less than the other kids. And growing up an only child, being around other kids was terrifying for me.
What was the first time you remember feeling less than?
There was a day at that I went to this one school for a week, right when we moved from Knoxville to Nashville. And I remember being scared to say my name in front of the group. One word question, and I panic choked until the teacher gave me a pass. I couldn't say my name. And that was the first real time that I realized, like, hey, maybe I'm different than everybody.
Do you have any idea why you struggled to say your name?
I don't. I just felt like there were too many eyes on me, and I don't know if clinically that's a panic attack or if that's just, a young kid being new, but that feeling, I can trace it all the way through growing up and up until the time I started using drugs.
Was the theme between that and the beginning of your addiction, is that all relate to isolation?
I don't know if it's isolation, but not good enough. Not good enough would be the tip of the spear, which led to isolation. And as that kind of projects onto what I see professionally, kids, young people, and even adults start using drugs or drinking more than needed to deal with unwanted feelings. And so the first opportunity I got to deal with my unwanted feelings of feeling insufficient and not good enough, my hair wasn't straight enough, my eyes weren't big enough, my teeth weren't wide enough, whatever the deal was, that day that I was comparing myself on, all that went away when I started using. I was tall enough. The phone, we had cords back then. The phone with the cord wasn't so heavy to pick up and call my friends or call that girl. I had a confidence that was not available to me. It took me from outside of the group to the top of what I figured was like the cool table. I finally belonged. The first time I intentionally used, I had been prescribed opiates for a knee injury in the 8th grade, and something just kind of like a magical voice on my shoulder told me, hey, these feel really good. Your Sega's more fun. Your video games are more fun. Pizza tastes better. The Pepsi tastes better. I wonder what your dad's beers would taste like. And then a couple of those, and I hated the taste of beer, but I imagined I might like how it felt. And I got a couple of those in me with a Vicodin that I was prescribed at 14. And I really liked how I felt. I went from this guy can't do anything to I've got Superman's cape. Just like that. And when I woke up the next day and I didn't feel like I had Superman's cape on, I couldn't wait to get back to that feeling. Every time I drank, as a young kid, every time I drank, I made sure that I could drink to blackout. So if there wasn't enough supply or time or lack of consequences to really like complete the deal and drink to blackout, I didn't start. That may have happened a couple of times, and I realized, hey, wait a minute. I need all this to add up to a more grand ending spot. So I'm not going to drink 2 or 3 of these or eat 1 or 2 of these pills. I want the whole experience. And stopping drinking for me after I started was painful. And I knew that at like 14, 15 years old.
Would you describe yourself as an extremist?
I would definitely describe myself as an extremist, yeah. A lot of alcoholics would say that we are egomaniacs with inferiority complexes. I really don't like to believe that about myself on the ego side, but I think I'm me. I think I do have on the Enneagram, I'm an 8, which means, hey, I'm here to help, but by the way, like get out of the way. I'm here to help. And so at my healthiest, I know that I have a lane to fill, and that a lot of advice that's not asked for can be harmful. And so I try to keep that to myself. And when when I have parts of my day where I'm maybe not my healthiest, I can be a little bit too bossy, or a lot of bit too bossy. Real me adjectives start with grateful, reverent, mindful. If I say that I'm humble, that means I'm actually not humble. But I think that the real me knows my place on an even keel. I don't think I outweigh the sun, and I don't think I'm a tiny speck. I get to be an interested father today. Though I make mistakes, I get to be a vested friend today. I try to be a great partner and transparent partner and employer. Above all of them, I get to be a dude in recovery that knows I have a template for life. So if and when I act in defect, I have a design to go back to that person and make it right. Active addict, me, trash. I lie, I steal, I cheat, I deceive, I stab backs. I'm not worth shooting. I've had judges call me a menace to society. I've had my father thank me thanks for the warning when I tell them I'm coming back. I've had my mom and dad both tell me that I'm dead to them. I've double-crossed my friends. There's really no limit to the low I would go to stay high. I served one purpose. And if you got in my way, then you got in my way. It was just an inconvenience. So there was a 13-year run of Groundhog Day, with the only variable really being the consequences getting bigger and worse. The driver there was that at age 19, I went to a beautiful college campus to see some friends of mine, and a big party weekend they were having. I stumbled into a restroom and found cocaine on a CD case. And from that moment until April 30th, 2010, the only question I wanted answered was, how can I have more of that? Fitting, I had to borrow $1 from someone to go and use it. So it was almost like the coke knew it was going to take everything I had. I had to borrow money to go try for the first time. That was spring of 1997. There were a lot of times where I wish I hadn't found it, but with the view of how my life has happened today and how many haystacks at the bottom of how many haystacks I am, and how fortunate that I've been to have had every bit of that experience. Today, I'm grateful for cocaine. Today, I understand that cocaine got me to the bottom a lot quicker than just drinking or just having a few pain pills would have. It brought consequences to life that ultimately I wasn't tough enough to handle. Cocaine first made me Superman. I was taller, my hair was cooler, my teeth were whiter, delusions that things were okay. And already compared to my peers, I was off track. We'd all entered college. I was doing very poorly. My friends tended to do very well. Even the ones who had the same kinds of party weekends as me. The difference between them and me was that, Monday morning rolls around, they go to class. Monday morning rolls around, I feel too bad about myself and what I've done that I just close the curtains and go back to sleep. And so this Groundhog Day that I'm talking about for years turns into fail out of college, get a bailout from mom and dad, maybe go sleep on their couch for a few weeks. I get everybody straightened out to give everybody enough hope. I was always accused of having a lot of potential and just needed, the right set of circumstances, and I could be successful and everybody could stop worrying and everybody could just go about their day. And I knew how to play my mom against my dad. Go to mom, intercede, get her tearful, get her hopeful. She goes to dad, check gets written, touchdown, And I knew how to do that. I created that in my family. And it was sick. I made my mother sick, who made my dad sick, and made sure that the circle, stayed intact. From the onset of finding cocaine to age 32, it was some variation of the conversation that here's when I need to be happy. Please give it to me. And if please doesn't work, then I'll hint at I'm not doing well. I need this to be happy, and just kind of bear threats to my mom. And, it's exactly why I love doing what I do today, because I can translate that language for moms and dads. It is my language.
I've never heard anyone say the phrase accused of having potential, but that's super interesting. Have you used that phrase before?
I don't think so, but I think that's part of what kept my parents and my family and our friends kind of like at my back was that I did have a lot of potential in bursts. I could speak and think on my feet. I could wear the right clothes and fit in. I could do that for a short time, but I wasn't comfortable doing that. I wasn't comfortable performing because ultimately I had no confidence in my track record. We know you can do it. You just got to do it. And I really wanted to believe them, but ultimately I didn't. It was a relief to me. When I finally got out of jail, this time in 2011, I was so relieved to just not have any expectation. And no one had ever expected me to be the Surgeon General or to do anything outstanding in life. But it was just a relief. Like just breathing, I'm playing with house money. Just breathing with this huge prison sentence weighing over my head. I got it made. Like, this is the coolest thing ever. Nobody expects me to do anything worthwhile. I get to breathe. Maybe I'll get a few cheeseburgers out of this thing, stay alive. Maybe I'll get back into my family one day. Maybe I can get a dog. Like, my sweetest dreams when I started my life over and free were that maybe I could get a couple of fast food jobs. Maybe I could get a scooter because my driver's license was mountains away of legal process and money that I didn't have. And maybe I could rent like a cool over the garage apartment from some, non-corporate entity that wouldn't check my credit because it was like 17. Those are my best dreams. And it's something that I have our clients do now. When they get into recovery, I ask them to write down like, hey, a year from today, you stay sober. I want you to tell me what you want your life to look like. And with every one of the clients that we get to review those dream boards with, they look at it and they laugh, because life, staying true to the process for a year, it just proves that our minds aren't big enough to imagine what life can hold for us if we stay true to the process and stay sober. We've conditioned our minds to just hold these false truths that we drag around like jail walls. So age 24, I moved to East Tennessee for I'd just come home from treatment. I lived in my mom and dad's house for long enough to actually work. I worked night and day in a restaurant, working doubles, put my own money together to get back into college. And I chose a state school about 90 miles from Nashville. It was far enough away to have some privacy, but it was all from my mom and dad, but it was also close enough if, in my mind, if and when, I messed up and, needed the conveniences of being home and being seen and my mom and dad's generosity. So I was 23, 24, and I got up there and I did pretty well for a little while. Things have happened for me and not to me. I had this great idea that I wanted to work for a bookie. And so it was a Nashville bookie. I would collect in this little town in East Tennessee. And at the end of the Super Bowl, I had more money than I'd ever seen. And my next great idea was drugs are not expensive in Nashville. Drugs are very expensive in Cookeville, so I've heard. So maybe I should just go buy cocaine in Nashville and bring it to Cookeville, and I could make some nice money. And I would do all of this sober, mind you. Like, I've been sober for a year and a couple months at this point. And so I made that call. And my sincerity about being a sober drug dealer lasted as long as, I'm backing out of the dude's driveway and I'm high. It's funny, but not funny. I drive all the way on the interstate. And at the exit I got off on, there was a state trooper. And I just knew, like, oh my gosh, they've been tracking me. They've been following me. Of course, they hadn't been. It's just a guy, just a police officer sitting there. But I've always recognized that as like the great foreshadowing of what this thing would bring me, So that's what I did. I sold drugs. I couldn't have been, if I marketed my business today with the same audacity that I marketed that one, I would need a stunt double. And I guess that's what just the delusion of drugs do. I could have put a sign up in the yard and been quieter about it. And ultimately, I think that I was so miserable, I wanted to get caught or I wanted to die first. And I think dying preferably would have been number one. I didn't have the courage to kill myself, but I didn't want to live that way. And I just felt stuck. So at some point, that was probably like a 2-year period. And at some point towards the end, I got into a DUI collision where I could have really hurt a couple people. And I never listened to anything said about like the the selfishness of drunk driving. But the way I look at it now, like every time I got behind the wheel, I should have been charged with attempted homicide. Like I was putting other people's lives at danger every time I chose to drive. I don't know how I'm ever going to pay that back to the universe, other than trying to be a good person. But I'm very fortunate that I never actually hurt anybody. But I did get into a DUI collision where fortunately no one was hurt. I got a 2-year probated sentence. One of those defining moments was the very next morning. I'm at my mom and dad's house, and the very next morning, I've got to go and sign my plea deal for this 2-year probation sentence. And the only thing I got to do 2 things. I got to show up, and I've got to take a clean urine test. Knowing that, my phone happens to ring. A friend of mine's around the corner. Hey, I've got just got a fresh bag of blow. Do you want some? Yeah. The lie I told myself was that there's no way it'll make it from my nose to my urine in 12 hours, right? Half of it's gone when I decided I went and started going through my dad's like workshop cabinets. I found some kind of powder that sounded terrible. Not quite like rat poison, but some sort of like acid, some kind of acid powder. And I put the powder into the Coke to stop myself from doing the rest of it. And it didn't work. I did the rest of the whatever I put in there and the Coke. And sure enough, the next day I go to the courthouse to sign the deal. They take me to do a urine screen. I fail and I go directly into jail. And I'm about 25 at that point. From 25 to 32, just about half of my days were spent in jail. To me, that is what my addiction had always felt like. No matter how free I was, or no matter how much drug money I had in my pocket, or how much I just, conned my mom and dad out of, I always felt like I was in jail. The only difference was the walls.
Were you scared of jail?
I wasn't scared of that one. That was a small jail, kind of like a redneck Goodfellas. There were different rules for different folks, and a good buddy of mine's family was from up there. And so every time I'd get in trouble, I'd get moved over to like the honor pod where, I could order pizza to the Sally Port, and I won't name the county to make anybody get mad, but I could have Cracker Barrel delivered. My wife at the time could come visit me and we could hang out. I could walk to the barbershop. I mean, it was kind of like Mayberry, I could just turn myself in. So that was good and bad, I think. It was bad for me because I came to believe that I was tough enough to pay the consequences for, big boy crime. What I found out when I got in real trouble a few years later, when I got real drug charges, was that I was not, in fact, tough enough to pay those kind of consequences. When I got to big boy jail, when I got to Harding Place here in Nashville, the Rolling 40s got a phone, the 60s have a phone, Grape Streets have a phone, the Vice Lords have a phone, the Mexican guys have a phone, and then the unaffiliated dudes like me, we don't have phones. We don't have privileges. We are the tiniest and least powerful of minorities there. I was scared every day that day would be the day that I got hurt, and you just walk around knowing that today could be the day I might get jumped. I'm defenseless. Rolling 40s, rolling 60s, Grape Street. At the time I was locked up, they were all California-based street gangs that had sets here in Nashville. Gangster Disciples, Vice Lords, they're a big one in Nashville. They have a big presence in Memphis. They're all involved in the drug trade. For the first time in my life, I had always played tough in my world. And I came to realize real quick that I was not tough. And I didn't want to be. I got arrested on April the 30th. So by May the 1st was when I really had that first like lightning strike where I'm laying in other people's urine and toilet water and throwing up on myself and I'm soaking wet. And then the next real snapshot I have of like, dude, you had it made and you blew it. I knew I was in deep trouble. I'm looking at 12 to 20 years for sale and possession inside the school zone. And I had like 40 felony bags of coke on me and scales and cash and the whole thing. And it was a big deal. Like there was no check from my mom, no hug from my dad coming to save the day. And they had already told me that my dad had gotten me on the phone, and he'd said, hey, I'm about to put your mom on, but before I do, I want you to hear this from me first. I want you to stop calling here. You can call me in a month. You can call me 4 Sundays from today. Call me at 4:00, and we'll talk for as long as you're positive. Here's your mom. And my mom gets on the phone, and I am my mom's only child. Put her through hell. She gets on the phone and she said, I've lived through all of this that I care to, and your drama is just too much. And from now on, you're dead to me. Don't call here anymore. And hung up. And while that really hurt to hear, I didn't really believe her. And she had never said anything close to that before. But she told me no before and then back down. So I just figured this was just a big no that was going to take some time. And I burned that phone up for weeks. Nothing. I called my dad a month later, just like he told me to. I started griping about something. He said, I got to get off the phone. You can call me next Sunday. We'll stay on for as long as you're positive. I'm not going to listen to you bitch and moan. Hangs the phone up. Note, I use that move with families that I work with now. Not quite the same delivery, but I had never learned that my parents were people. I had never learned that, they did the best with with the training that they got by the people that raised them. They weren't my lawyers. They weren't my managers. They weren't my bankers. They weren't my problem solvers. They were just people. And I had never treated them like people. Around that phone call, there's mail comes at night in that jail. And I was so convinced that there was a conspiracy that all of my mail was being held because I was just a crazy person. No mail was coming my way. So I thought the guards must be like holding it all because there's not like 5,000 people there. I must be that important, right? And so I said something to the guy after mail call one night. I said to the CO, it's like, hey man, there's got to be something wrong. I'm not getting any letters. He looked at me and he said, what's your name? And I said, Hobbs. And he looked at his little sheet and he goes, nobody cares, man. And it was like, it hit me like right then. He was right. Nobody cared because I'd truly burned all my bridges. And I was going to go, my plan, like the tears were coming. And I'm at the front of a 52 bunks, a 104 guy pod. My bunk is in the bottom right, all the way to the back. There's a skinny window. So my plan at that point was, I'm going to somehow keep these tears from rolling down my face until I get back to my bunk. I'm going to go to the back side of it, and I'm going to act like I'm praying so I can cry in peace. I'm going to pull my shirt up. I think I got a step or two away before it hit me. And I took the prayer position, and I kind of laid over the bed, and I cried every tear that I had that had been welled up for forever. I knew that my life was like, that life had to be over, and there was no guarantee how long I was going to sit in jail. I think my face was almost dry. I don't know how long I'd been laying there, but I had this thought, like, since you're sitting here, why don't you just say a prayer? And the only prayers I'd ever said to that point were like deals. Like, hey, big fella, if you get me out of this, I'll do right next time. And that's not the prayer I said that day. That evening I said something like, Hey God, I haven't done much with the opportunities you've given me. I know you can't change these walls. I know you can't change the noise. I know you can't change the COs. I know you can't change my outfit, but please change me so that I don't walk out of here the same sorry bastard that walked in. And that was it. And I meant it. There was no magical words, I meant it, and for some reason I chose to believe that it was going to be heard. And from that moment, that's like a snapshot. The next moment I really remember in there was, it was probably maybe a week or so later, a guy's getting out of jail, and he's got a 12-step book that he's trying to give away, and I reach out and I grab it. The one phone number I'd needed to the guy, the one person who might care that I was locked up, I'd been trying to schedule a visit with this guy, but you've got to be able to give him a phone number. So I opened this 12-step book up, and here's the number I need, 615-613-XXXX. The book looked like it had never been opened before, but it had been opened at least once because my man's number was in there. The next real memory I have was I got a letter from that same guy before, this is a couple days later, before I'd actually had a chance to use it and try to get a hold of him. And he said, obviously he knew where I was, and he wanted to visit me. And so he'd already arranged it. Looking back at it now, it was like these little snacks of hope were being put on my path. And so my friend comes, his name's Larkin. I remember sitting in this visit room, and he's sitting maybe, from me, maybe a couple feet away, and the guard calls 5 minutes. It's like, all right, guys, 5-minute warning. It's over. And I'm just sitting there thinking, how can I fit in his pocket? He's going to play golf and go to his wife, and I am here for 12 to 20 years. And it just it blew my mind, I read in that same 12-step book on page 152 that the most satisfying years of my existence lie ahead. And it was the only thing that I had to believe. And I read it right after he left. It was the only thing that I had to believe, or I could believe, that gave me any relief, and so I did. Those little hope snacks started to come a little more frequently. As I became more abandoned to the process, I started to have more hope that I could have a different life. As my court process played out, I ended up beating the school zone regulation by distance. So I went from looking at 12 to 20 to 4 to 8. And the awesome part about that was that I might get a chance at life again, but I had been scared well enough to get completely desperate. I credit that desperation to the quality of life I have today, because it's never gone away. My court process took a little while. As it turns out, I was going to get another shot at life about 6 months later. So I did a year, day for day, and then I had 12 on parole. And if I screwed up at any point during the parole, I would get the entire sentence put into effect. No breaks, no good time, no credit, just roll it. Took that plea, and then I went over to prison. And shortly after I got there, I got put into solitary confinement. I got into a fight for the first time since I'd been locked up. There were no distractions. There was no noise. There was nothing to read. There was no radio. It was just me in a box. And it's like when you get in a car wreck and you start feeling like, hey, am I okay? Is anything broken? Oh my God, what have you done to your mother? Oh my God, what have you done to your dad? How much time and joy and peace and sleep have you stolen from the people that love you the most? And sitting with that stuff, I think I was there 47, 48 days before they let me out. It seemed terrible, but it was, as I look at it now, it was a gift. I really got to feel what I'd introduced to my family's life. 40-something days may not sound like much to people that have been, locked up for years and years and had terrible things happen to them. But for me, it was truly a gift.
Was talking to Larkin the first time that your fear of your own potential, accusation of potential, felt less daunting than the hopefulness of opportunity?
I think so. And what I took away from him coming was, I remember word for word, he said, it doesn't matter if it's 20, if it's 10, and he used the word nickel, or if you do a nickel, you're going to have a friend when you get out. And that's all I knew. I was going to have a friend and a plan. And to me, that was the best idea I'd heard. He agreed to sponsor me in a 12-step program, and we began working steps. Even locked up, I began to experience relief from being irritable and restless and discontented, not being able to medicate it. My higher power, whoever runs the clouds, picked him to be the delivery guy for that message, because I believe him. We'd known each other for a while, and I had watched him get sober and watched his life take off, so I knew it worked. I was jealous in some senses that, like, wait, like he really, really did the deal where I faked it, but his life took off, you know? He's got, you know, new cool things happening in his life, like professional advancements and getting married and being happy and like all the things we want to get sober for. And I just checked the boxes, and here I am sitting in jail. So proof, this thing can work, but it's got to be done the right way. My mom almost died several times trying to have me. And a couple of times I always asked for I wanted a little brother for Christmas. So, no small task. Give me a little brother, you know? My mom, I think, struggled telling me no because I reminded her a lot of her younger brother who actually passed away in a tragedy in his younger years. I'm a parent today, and it hurts me to see my 5-year-old experience life and not feel great about it sometimes. As a parent, if you know your kid's hurting, you'd want to do anything. It's instinctive to try to stop their pain. I think that I put them in such fear that, you know, it was just easier and more reliable for them to act and placate me and hope that that would be the thing that gets me on the right track than to let me feel what the world had coming to me and hope that I lived through it. When I think about how much, I don't have any of that kind of drama in my life today, or anyone giving me that drama that I'm responsible for, you know, loving. How much do you love a nap on Saturday afternoon? How much do you love just being able to hit the pillow and go to bed? Enjoy a good meal. Go to the grocery store. I took all of those things away. My actions took all those things away from my mom and dad. They were scared to see their friends because they didn't want to answer the question, how's Darren doing? I was the sore subject. You know, I'm the black sheep is not a term I love, but like not a lot of people from my school and my neighborhood and our group of friends end up where I ended up. And so, you know, I think my mom and dad probably couldn't say it. They'd probably have a hard time saying it, but I'm sure being my parent was an embarrassment, you know, and really scary. I thank my dad every year for Christmas. Thanks for not shooting me. It's kind of like a dark humor way of saying thank you. You know, he pulled me aside this Christmas. He's sweet, but kind of pulled me by the shoulder. He's like, hey man, did you ever think when you're sitting in jail 13 years ago, did you ever think that your family would be at your house having Christmas in 2023? I was like, we just started laughing because it was just insane. You know, I had a track record before I started going to jail. I wrecked like 7 Christmases in a row. For whatever reason, me and the universe decided to have my biggest blunder of the year between Thanksgiving and Christmas. 18 and 25, I did every year. And then there was a couple of years I was actually in jail. You know, I wrecked more Christmases than Alabama won national championships. I was just a perennial contender, you know. I'll never have the right words to thank my mom and dad for everything that they did for me. And the best thing that they ever did for me was to tell me no. And I try to explain that to the families that we work with. And some understand and some want to fight about it. But the most loving and kind thing that my mom and dad ever did for me was allow the world to touch me and to teach me. When they stopped shielding me from the consequences that I was earning, I was put in the crosshairs of where I either grow or I don't. And if I don't, I'm probably dead.
Putting yourself back in the moment of realization where you realized what you'd put your parents through. In that moment, I don't know if it was in jail, I don't know when it was, but like, what would you describe that moment, how it felt to you?
I'll describe the moment. So I'm being led to solitary confinement, the penalty box. The door shuts behind me and I'm alone. The door shuts. And right then there was just like, the only way I can describe it is there's a hollow in my heart for what I've caused these people that have done nothing but love me and support me. All they ever wanted to do was see me smile. And I have lied to them. I have manipulated them. I've stolen their time and their money. I have pawned gifts that they've given me. They've spent their time to, earn, and then spent more of their time and their energy to go and try to pick something reflective of how they feel about me. And I have taken that, sold it, thrown it in the trash. And that's what I did with all the efforts they ever gave to like pour their love into me, and my feeling that and the way I made them feel is probably like, again, a needle in a haystack. I don't know how bad that would hurt. That was one of those like snapshots that I remember. I crawled on that top bunk and there was a tall, skinny window that looked out, and I emptied my head. I cried every tear that I had. I shook and I herked and I jerked, and I just couldn't imagine if I felt that, what it felt like for them for years, Age 14, 1992, prescribed opiates for a knee injury playing basketball. Shortly after that, I figured out that my dad's beers tasted really good with a couple of those pills in me. Shortly after that, I realized that both of my parents had a lot of the same prescriptions, and we never seemed to run out. From that point through high school, I binged on alcohol whenever I possibly could. I got caught a few times, very few consequences. Sophomore of what would have been my freshman year at college, age 19, I found cocaine at a fraternity party. From that moment forward, my life wasn't complete without it. I bounced around being a serious casual user due to supply issues for a couple of years. And at age probably 22, I realized that I could get a hold of enough to not only do, but sell to pay for my habit. I sold mostly but on and off for the next 10 years. There was a DUI arrest that led to on and off jail time in 2004. I ended up doing close to 2.5, 3 years in blocks of 6 to 8 months at a time. And in the spring of 2010, I was arrested on sale and delivery and possession charges in a school zone in Nashville. I was running a bar on Broadway. I was so close to their office, I thought that I was hiding in plain sight and they'd never catch me. And it turns out that was very poor logic. They sent an informant in and they had photocopied the money. So they'd been watching me for about 3 weeks. So this informant had been part of the staff of the bar I worked in, and he had been fired. So I had to be off the bar's cameras to sell to him. So I walked into the hallway. This is now AJ's Good Times bar on Broadway, 421B. So I walk into the hallway, take a couple steps down, and I make the handoff, and then I come back into the bar. I go around the bar top and into my bar, and I hear, "Metro detectives, put your hands in the air." And I'm like, oh, cool, who's getting arrested? And then I got, boom, dumped. And I see this nice man and lady who'd been there right when I opened, just having a Coke and a smile. They're the Metro detectives, and they've got badges and guns. And then this third face I see, I'm face down, I'm doing this. And then this third face goes, "We've been listening to you. We've been watching you." And I looked at him, and this dude had been in there every night for 3 weeks. And my first thought was, y'all weren't listening to my phone because you'd have come at 9 o'clock. I had a lot of Molly coming at 9 o'clock. There was a pretty light show that week. And it was the first time there was going to be like a real big EDM show downtown. You know, and again, that was the universe, God looking out for me. If they'd come at 9 instead of 6, I wouldn't be here.
You'd still be in jail.
I'd be under the jail. Yeah, at that time, MDMA and ecstasy were prosecuted really strong. I'm taking the side of honesty here. I think that school zone drug charges are fair. You shouldn't sell drugs near schools because kids can die. Fair. I happen to be outside the perimeter. But I think most law enforcement agencies use proximity to the perimeter as a bargaining chip. So you'll be happy, instead of giving you this A-class felony, you'll be happy to take the B and just keep on going. If I got justice for all the drugs I sold and all the people I, could have gotten sick or hurt or even killed, I'd be off the planet. So, I got mercy was given to me, not justice. I get out of jail, and I had one other friend that was in touch with me. His name was Murphy. And at some point I'd written him a letter and saying, hey man, I think I'm going to get a new shot at life. If I lose, I'm going to lose nice. I'm going to lose honest. I'm going to lose in a whole new way. I'm not going to lie and steal and be a thief of, anything I can get my hands on. I just want to live a normal life. And the only way I can do that's in recovery. With my buddy Larkin's help, I got knee deep in 12-step recovery. I lived in halfway houses. That was my life. It was like I was holding hands with the man upstairs. I completely abandoned myself to recovery. In attempts prior to that, I'd have my normal friends and my recovery friends. And I would tell, different stories to each. And in the universe's way of protecting me, I was surrounded by recovery. And I knew it was the only chance. It was the door that was going to open any other door that was worth me going in. My sponsor's wife, she came to me and she was like, hey man, I'll give you the secret to staying sober if you want it. And I'm like, come on with it, boss. What is it? And she's like, all right, I want you to work no more than 40 hours. You want a full-time job, but you don't want to obsess. And you're going to be celibate for a year. And I'm like, well, I've already been celibate for a year. And she's like, well, do you want to get sober and stay sober? Or do you want to do things your way? And I'm like, you know what? My way's doesn't have a great track record. I'll try yours. She was a clinician in recovery. So she had some depth and weight with me, I listened and I didn't just listen and get smart. I was actually shown how to live and shown how to, show up and be social, because all this is new to me. I don't know how to walk in with my chin up and say, hey, how are you? My name is Darren. It's nice to meet you. I feel like everywhere I show up, there's convict written across me. And I'm 70 pounds overweight. So I was really conscious of that. What little clothes I had left over from my life before, they didn't fit real good. But it was all like this huge blessing of I'd always been able to hide behind things or relationships. And I just got a chance to be clumsy old me and make friends with the people who liked me back. Again, it was part of the gift. It was the hardest part probably for me to unwrap, was to just show up and be imperfect and be who I was. It was a ride worth taking. It's a ride I get to take every day. The recipe wasn't designed to keep me from enjoying life. It was designed to keep me alive. And if I put my focus on recovery and on learning how to communicate with friends as opposed to how to get what I want, I would have a full life. And, sooner than later, my life was like an adventure. I had a job and a half that kept me right around the suggested hours. And I had a lot of friends who would pick me up and take me to meetings. And I got to learn to be friendly with people without, weaseling for something. It was the perfect thing. And I felt rushed because I was 33 and all of my peers that I'd grown up with had gone on to do beautiful things with their lives. And, I was cleaning trash cans at Edgehill Village. The same kind of people that used to party with me were now, shopping in the kind of stores where I was cleaning up, dirty diapers out of the floor. Again, that was part of the gift. I didn't really want to unwrap that part, but I'm glad that I got to. Now I get to work with families and help them navigate addiction. And I get to help them navigate patterns of enabling. And, there's a lot of misinformation out there that families can fall victim to, and that people struggling with substance abuse can fall victim to. And what we're doing now is trying to capture actionable steps for these families and their loved ones so that they can have a usable map, so that they can get from, I have substance abuse in my family, to now we've got substance use in our family. We are treating it as a family, and everyone knows the role they play. It's a family disease, and the solution's got to be family as well.